On this episode, I talked to a fellow deep thinker. Her name is Hannah. She's a therapist that uses hypnotism in her job as a life coach. Hannah, like so many of us, grew up with her own very set of issues. But unlike so many of us, Hannah and I wanted to know why, which leads us to here, posing questions to each other about the benefits of hypnosis, alternative medicines, and the importance of a therapist. We also talk about if you're an empath, you might want to play more Scrabble and you might not want to be friends with your exes. Now, how does that make you feel? Let's jump in. Everybody, welcome to a Moderately Good podcast. So glad to have you back. I know everybody's coming back. We're going to go ahead and knock out these shout outs real quick so we can get started with my guest, Hannah. But Above Average Joe Media does all the pictures, videos. Find him on Instagram. Jason at Wish Pocket does all my audio. He can do any kind of audio. Find him on Instagram. No Names Originals. That's my friend Jaron. He's in North Carolina, and he is a local artist in North Carolina. So support local art in North Carolina by going to Instagram and following him. No Names Originals does cool T-shirts, and he does a little bit of everything. Love it. Last but not least, my guy Mo. He has the Go Bubble app, and if you type in the code Go Moderately, you get a discount. Still don't know. I'm going to say this every time. Still don't know what it is. Just go put it in. Oh, and if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button because that helps me out and it doesn't affect you hardly at all other than you get spammed with all my cool shit. And then follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts because you're already following me on YouTube. And so you might, this costs you nothing and it's great support, right, Hannah?
Correct.
Right. It's great for people that are trying to create media.
Yes.
Everybody, welcome my guest, Hannah. How you doing, Hannah?
I'm doing so good.
Say hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? So really quickly, before we get started, shoot out your socials and kind of what you do, what you do and all that good jazz.
Yeah. So I am a brand new therapist, actually. And
Hooray!
Yay! I'm also a life coach and I do some therapeutic hypnosis. And
which I'm a big fan of.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to talk about it. And you can find me on Instagram at into.the.abliss.
I like that, by the way.
ABLISS. Thank you so much. You can also find me at www.intotheabliss.com.
And what are we doing there? What is go in a little bit of depth. We'll go into depth a little bit like your life coaching style, and then kind of like being a new therapist.
Right.
Is a new part that you're a hypnotherapist?
No, the hypnotherapy. In Austin, you're not allowed to call it hypnotherapy unless you are a licensed therapist, which now I am. So I suppose I could call it that. But Texas is just specific that you have to call it hypnosis unless you took a specific to therapy, clinical hypnotherapy class.
But
it's very similar.
Let's be honest. You understand how hypnosis works, yes?
Correct.
And you understand how therapy works, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
So I guess I could add them together at this point. So let's do that. So Into the Abliss is that's more of my life coaching and hypnotherapy stuff. And then, this becoming a new therapist is your more classic psychotherapist kind of thing. And those two I do keep separate for billing and legal reasons, et cetera.
Yeah, there's all that jazz, right?
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk quickly about just hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
Yes.
What are the major benefits of hypnotherapy?
I mean, the biggest thing is that you're targeting the unconscious mind, which I imagine you know something about how the unconscious works.
Sure.
But I'll just give you my little
pretend like I don't know anything.
The spiel, which is that it's somewhere between 95 to 99% of our total brain functioning is unconscious, which makes sense if you think about how the fact that our hearts are beating and our blood is flowing and all these things are happening without our conscious awareness.
There's a lot of jobs to be done while you're just walking around, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And like, thank goodness,
you
right?
can't be thinking about all of them.
Thank goodness we're not saying like breathe in, breathe out or any of that kind of stuff. But there's also so much more that is not conscious. And it really is kind of at the heart of everything that we do is stored in this part of our brain that we don't have conscious awareness of. So what we're doing in hypnotherapy is that we're accessing those parts of the brain that are unconscious and most likely holding us back from the things that we really want to be able to do, whether that's the classic examples are like stop smoking and lose weight. But I think for becoming more nuanced in the field of hypnotherapy is things like why am I procrastinating all the time? Why can't I achieve these goals? Why am I so afraid of having this conversation? And we so often try to logic our way into figuring out why that is when really it's happening at this part of our brain that
you can't even get into.
No, and it functions at the level of like your daughter's age.
Yeah.
It functions as this really little child kind of part of ourselves that is not logical. It doesn't respond to logical arguments. It doesn't respond to, a debate. It's really going to respond to things that are emotional and things that are intuitive. So things like music, things like imagery is really going to access our unconscious mind. You're not going to convince the unconscious mind with like a cold hard debate. It's going to be this very different kind of experience, which is why if you hear a hypnotherapy recording, it's going to sound kind of like hippy dippy and woo woo. There's music and we're talking softly about opening up your heart. But this is all, kind of rooted in the fact that we're trying to reach a different part of your operating system. So
I don't know if I mentioned this before, but my last therapist that I had was a hypnotherapist.
Oh, sick.
Right?
Sweet.
And I remember, I think I've told this before. I remember going in and like we would start therapy and she was like, okay, we're going to like meditate. I'm like, all right. So we're meditate. And so we start this meditation and like, I'm like kind of like falling asleep. I was like, oh, like, why can't I just like stay awake? So that went on a little bit. And so then I started like drinking an energy drink, but I was like, well, maybe I'm just tired. And so before I would go in, because I'd get in her couch and I would kind of sink down. So I was like, I'm going to drink this energy drink. And then I was like, still falling asleep. And I was like, and so finally I just told her, I was like, I'm really sorry, but like I keep falling asleep. And she goes, that's when you're drifting into like hypnotherapy. Like that's where I'm.
This is trance.
Right.
We love trance.
Right. And it was so wild because like, like I didn't even know she was doing it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like, I'm pretty sure I probably gave her permission at some point. But like the cool part about it is the fact that I didn't know I was doing it made it better.
Yes.
Until like she told me I was. And then once she told me I was, like it didn't change anything because it was so far along. Like I was like, oh, okay, now this all makes kind of sense, right? And I don't know if that's what did the trick for me to kind of flip my brain. But after that, my brain has been like totally like different.
So it was effective for you.
I think.
Yes, that's what everyone says, which is why it's so cool. You don't really.
But here's my question.
Yes.
And I don't know how to really word this.
Go for it.
I don't remember her unlocking or anything unlocking like a specific thing. Right? There was nothing I go like this trauma or this thing. I don't remember anything like that. Right. I remember what she told me to do and what I did and where I was and what I was doing. But I don't like, so I guess my first question is that normal? And then my second question is, why is that or what's happening?
Right. So I think a really common response to people who have gotten hypnotherapy, let's just use the example of smoking, is they're like, yeah, I don't think the hypnotherapy worked. I don't think it did anything, but I just decided to stop smoking on my own. Is like a really common response. I think people are...
For real?
Yeah. I think people are expecting it to feel like this big magical, you said unlock. So yeah. Correct me if I'm on the wrong
I think that's fair.
But I think people are expecting it to be this like lightning bolt moment of like, I'm a changed person. Yes. When in reality, it functions like anything else that would happen. It doesn't usually hit like that. It kind of just slips into your brain and then you kind of go about making the change. I think people give hypnosis too much credit for being this magical, mysterious thing, when in reality, it's not really that. It's just a way of accessing the brain. So it's not going to feel like, I don't know, I did ayahuasca and suddenly my life is different. I think it tends to have that more gradual kind of natural unfolding, if that makes sense.
So if you've already explained this, quick review.
No worries.
But like, so what's actually happening inside my brain when it's being hypnotized? Did you say that already?
Not really. Yeah.
Okay.
No. And we could talk about this forever. So just stop me.
No. We'll go on for a while. We'll change subjects. But I'm really, because I do think it worked. Mm-hmm. Right. I just want to know what happened.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. So when you're in that trance state, which is that state where you kind of mentioned like almost couldn't stay awake.
Right.
So trance, it sounds like this mysterious magical thing. It's really not that magical. We're in trance several times a day, every day. And it's basically a brainwave state that is not quite sleeping, not quite awake. And it's when we're really relaxed. We're actually in trance, when we're watching TV, we're in trance, usually right when we wake up, right before we go to bed.
If I'm driving my car.
Yes, in trance. Okay. So what that means is that your prefrontal cortex is kind of going a little bit offline. Your ability to accept or reject information as factual versus not is not on the job right now. Which means that things that are suggested to you or spoken to you when you're in that state, your brain is much more likely to accept. So to give you a little bit of perspective on this, from the ages of 0 to 7 years old, our brain is in constant trance, which means that things that happen around us or are told to us between the ages of 0 and 7, we just accept it as fact, which is why little kids believe in Santa Claus without a second thought, which is really wonderful and kind of fun. But that's also, you could imagine, really scary if you tell a young kid, hey, you were a bad kid today, or whatever. It could be something as innocuous as that. The brain lodges that away as fact, and it's very difficult to remove it because it's been kind of like programmed in there. So you can think of trance. Yes.
Quick question.
Yes.
So we were talking, I don't know if we were on mic, but we were talking about, I think we were, where my daughter, like, I'm going to save money for therapy.
I don't think we were. We might have been on mic.
I think we were.
Okay.
Anyways, point being is, there's what you're talking about where a child accepts information. There's literally nothing I can do about that necessarily, right? Because like, I'm going to do my best all the time.
Right.
But at some point, she will connect something that is negative like that and take that and kind of store that away, even if I'm not meaning it to be that way.
Most likely.
Yeah.
And that's not to freak you out. That's
No,
kind of
it just amplifies how much those words matter.
Yes.
Like your intention behind those words.
They really do.
Like if you're a parent and you want to at me, it's fine. But like, I try really hard to never lie to her about anything.
Right.
Not even like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll come right back because I know she's really tired and she'll just go to sleep. Mm-hmm. I'll just tell her like, hey, I'll be back. I just come back like way later.
Yes.
But I'm not lying. Right. But like to say I'm going to go to the bathroom seems just like a useless lie. It is so useless.
Yes.
And if she were to figure that out, that's where that goes in their brain.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not cool. Anyways, but that's just me.
Right. And it's not, I mean, I don't have kids, but it's not in my personality type to be that really kind of careful parenting figure. But just knowing what I know about the unconscious mind, unfortunately, it's like, yeah, that shit does matter because even someone could have no recollection of that ever being said to them. But for some reason, they're having a really hard time feeling like they deserve good things. And it's because freaking,
you told them
3 years old and a very well-meaning parent said, you were a bad boy today, so you can't have what you want.
Right.
Something as simple as that, then it's just like locked in there. And then, homeboy, when he's 25, can't figure out why he doesn't let himself have the things that he wants.
Right. So that's 0 to 7.
Yes.
Okay.
0 to 7. And then
I interrupted, but like, that's 0 to 7. Yes.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, so
constant trance.
Constant trance.
And then after that, we start to develop it's called critical faculties, right? Our ability to accept or reject information as factual or not. When you'll hear kids say stuff like, you're lying, you're not telling the truth, kind of really questioning you on things and logic. But we're still in trance as adults. And then, of course, a lot throughout childhood.
Is that daydreaming? Is that?
It's daydreaming, yeah. And and again, trance can be a really great thing. It's also.
Is that your creative mind coming from that? Okay.
Yes, it's our right brain stuff. So it's stuff like emotions, music, images. It's things that are like pre-verbal, those things that feel just like soulful and innate is kind of in that unconscious trancey part of us, if that makes sense. So when you, again, go into your hypnotherapy session and you're in trance, it just means that you are able to accept whatever the therapist is suggesting to you without completely rejecting it as crap. So if she or he, sorry, I don't know, your therapist is telling you, you know, that you can do this thing and you are worthy and you can overcome this, it just means that the mean voice in our head that we were talking about earlier is not going to interrupt to be like, that's bullshit. It means that you're actually going to be receptive to what is being told to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It also makes me think as a hypnotherapist, you have a lot of responsibility.
Oh my gosh, it's terrifying. It's honestly really terrifying, especially because no one, honestly, to be very candid with you, no one understands 100% how the unconscious mind works. We just have these tools and we have these ideas about it, but it is, in a way, it is still very misunderstood and mysterious. So one does bear a lot of responsibility, and it's not even like you fully understand exactly what's at play, especially because every person is so different.
So does your unconscious mind have a hard time receiving and accepting information?
Well, I mean, that all depends on how heavily you were swayed in one direction or the other.
Like by past history?
Yeah. I think it really...
Like how much damage is done?
Basically, for lack of a better term, I think that the amount, you know, if you were told outright all the time as a young kid that you're worth nothing, it's going to take a lot more to shift your unconscious mind into believing that you are worthy and you're enough and you're beautiful versus someone who maybe only heard that once, you know, when their parent was pissed off. I think it really does depend on how firmly that belief has been rooted. I think accessing the unconscious mind, I mean, again, that can also be somewhat difficult to do depending on the person. Is someone even willing to relax enough to trust another person?
Well, I was thinking to just like if a therapist is giving you the best direction they can, right? Does your unconscious mind even go like who are you? Like why are you telling me this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, does it question, or does it just receive it as truth? Like, is where if our conscious, like, we don't necessarily always receive things as truth. Is that correct?
Yes. No, we don't. Like if we're thinking critically.
Yes. Maybe.
Yes. Maybe.
Yeah. So your unconscious mind is pretty receptive. Would that be fair to say?
It is receptive if it's in trance. Okay. Again, it's going to take...
And it's not just one. It's not a one-shot deal either.
No,
it takes repetition, right? Like working out. It's like it's repetition,
exactly. Right? Some hypnotherapists argue like if you're doing it right, it should only take one session. That's never been my experience with myself or anyone that I've given hypnotherapy to. Which is why I always make recordings so that it becomes a habit. Some people argue that one session will cure you, and I'm just like not of that persuasion. I just remembered my hypnotherapist. Man, Cheryl, you're sneaky, Cheryl. She would send me recordings. Yes. And she was like, these are your meditations. But I'm pretty sure, I'm sure they were meditations, but I'm also pretty sure they were like types of hypnotherapy, right? Oh, yeah. By the way, so meditation.
Cheryl, you got some explaining to do.
Cheryl's sneaky. And oh my gosh, I mean, so much of hypnotherapy actually works based on that kind of sneaky placebo effect. By the way,
But it's not like, okay, let's back that up a little bit. I don't think... No hypnotherapist is trying to be sneaky.
No.
But it's like...
They're just trying to get you what you want.
It's kind of like... Is it more like you have to sneak up on the unconscious mind?
You do.
Because the conscious mind be like, hey, what's going on there? Hey, what are you doing? Right? And so it's like your conscious mind is kind of standing guard of the unconscious mind. So you have to kind of get around the guard, basically, right?
100%. I also don't want to ruin your ruse if this was what was working for you. But a meditation and hypnosis, your brain is in the same state. It's just usually those words can be used interchangeably, sort of. Usually a meditation is not as goal-oriented as a hypnosis would be. Hypnosis, you're really trying to get a result. Right. Whereas a lot of meditations are more about whatever.
Meditation... if you can get there, can put you into a trance, correct? Like that is a trance, correct?
That's a trance state.
Because I felt like that before too. Like I meditated and felt like I was going to, like at moments felt like I did fall asleep and then kind of went, When I was really consistent about it, like I would just go in my truck. Like if I was on a break, I'd take a 10-minute break and go do it just 10 minutes real quick.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would fall asleep in my truck, wake up and go, oh, am I late for my appointment? Like, oh shit. Like, and it would be the guy's like, and you're finished. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, but I was just kind of curious about that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Psychotherapist.
Is
that correct?
Yes. Yes. It's therapist. I just like to differentiate between like a physical therapist.
I know. And also there are just like regular therapists. There's psychiatrists, right?
Yes.
That's a type of therapist, right? Or is that no?
A psychiatrist is a doctor who can do therapy, might not. A psychiatrist is in charge of like prescribing psychiatric medication.
Yes.
Then there's a psychologist, which also most likely does therapy as well, but has a doctorate degree.
Yes.
More schooling.
Yes.
I didn't want to do that.
Hey, that's fair.
And then a therapist can have a couple of different degrees. You could either have a master's of social work, which is what I have. You could have a master's of a master's in counseling, basically. And those basically the same thing, just different routes to getting to the same place.
Okay. And your boyfriend does what?
He's a psychiatrist. So he prescribes the meds and does brief therapy sometimes. Yeah.
So,
and he makes a lot more money than I do.
Well, yeah.
Let's just be clear.
But he's a doctor. That's a doctor.
He's a doctor.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Went to doctor school.
That's fair.
Yeah. He deserves it.
So you mentioned something funny that y'all psychoanalyze each other.
Yes.
Okay. Is that like I'm just out of curiosity. This is just a total curiosity question. Is that what attracted y'all together? Is that
was yeah. I mean, say more.
Do you mind saying how y'all met? Like,
not at all.
Okay, so like just really quickly, because I'm just interested. In that whole, because I've always wondered, like, say that one partner is a therapist and the other person just, I don't know, like a construction worker or whatever.
Right.
What is that relationship like? Because there's a certain level of this person maybe doesn't have to work on themselves, but at least understands what it's like to work on yourself. And this person might not tap into that, and then they're trying to have a relationship together. But y'all both have kind of an angle. And like are interested in learning that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious.
I thought that it would be so much more common too. I was like, I bet every therapist also dates a therapist or someone in mental health. We are the only couple I know that's like that. Okay. Every other psychiatrist or therapist I know has a partner who's in a completely different profession. I'm like, maybe they're onto something.
It does. I as a personal trainer, I've only dated one person that was a personal trainer.
Right.
Everyone else I dated was regular
people.
Well, just not a personal trainer. We'll
Civilian,
put it that way.
if you will.
Just a regular old person.
Yes. So we met not through, the field at all. He's the older brother of one of my best friends. And I had met him like 4 years ago and we like immediately hit it off, but he was in residency in San Francisco. So I was like, that's a cute dude. I'll never see again. And then the pandemic rolled around and I was over at that friend's house for Thanksgiving. And he was also visiting his brother for Thanksgiving.
Right.
And we started dating. So we've been dating ever since then.
It's a lot of dating and stuff is timing.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, a lot of life is timing.
I know it sounds unromantic and I'm such a romantic person, but I'm like, no, it was 100% like timing. Like,
well, I mean, but like, timing can be romantic.
Correct.
But it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be, I don't know. I met my current girlfriend. I met her now 12, 13 years ago.
Oh, sweet.
And that timing was bad.
Yeah, bad timing.
We dated for about like 6 months and then it just went, And then this time around with a lot of growth and life and everything else, the timing is way better.
Wait, that's awesome. So you dated 12 years ago, and then when did you start up again?
I was married and I got divorced, and somewhere at the end, I mean, I'm being honest, somewhere at the end of our separation, I stalked her on LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn.
I mean, well,
the unsung hero.
But here, look, in my defense, she has no social media.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah,
I respect that.
It's very cool. It's also, she told you before, she's never listened to one episode of the podcast.
She does listen to his podcast.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fine. You know what? Like, she lets it be mine.
That's kind of nice, though, you know?
Well, but I do the same thing for her.
Some mystery.
I let her music be.
Mystery.
I'm supportive
yes.
of what she wants to do, but I don't go, let me hear. Like, if she goes, hey, I want to play this for you. Mm-hmm. Or if I have something from the podcast, I go, hey, look at this intro or whatever. But, like, I let that be hers, and this is mine.
That sounds really smart.
But also, there's nothing I say on here that I wouldn't have told her or said to her face. You know,
right.
Like, this is
so this time around, how long have you guys been dating?
Like, let's say Lucy's like almost 2, so like 3.5, maybe 4 years, something
That's
like that.
awesome. You don't hear about that too much, like people getting back together.
Well, you know what's really weird is like when we initially like split up, like whatever years ago it was, I was just like, man, like why didn't that work? I was just like, it just felt like, and then like, you know, but there was a lot of stuff going on in my life. There was a lot of stuff going on in her life. And it just kind of always haunted me. And so like, and when I thought about like people that, you know, I wanted to date, there was a lot of her in that.
Oh,
you know
that's romantic as hell.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, then you ask her like what she did over that 10 years and she was like, I didn't think about you at all, really. You know what I mean? And, and it's fine. Like, you know, like we're on different journeys, but like I always felt like, and so that's why I reached out to her.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like she moved in and she got pregnant and now we have a baby. But
I mean, amazing.
But it's, you know, but it's one of those things like we had to become these people.
Yes.
And in that sense, the timing very much like mattered. I don't believe in being, I believe in being friendly to exes. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in being friends. There's no value in
Pretty impossible.
You just, why would you make something so fucking harder? Why are you making it harder? It's already hard.
Oh,
Don't make it
God.
harder.
No, I agree with you.
And
yes.
Oh, by the way, you want to be friends with your exes is all about you. It's not about anything else but you and your confidence and wanting to feel like you were a good person when you dumped them or what shit didn't work out.
Wow. I love that you just came out with that realism, which I happen to very much agree with. I was one of those people that would always try to be friends with my exes, and then now as a grown
up, look, if you're friends with your exes, do it. Knock yourself out. I'm telling you, and now, like, I have exes I'm friends with, but like one of them I dated over like 25 years ago.
That you can do. If it's like your high school girlfriend, you can do it.
Well, I'm older than that, but like, yeah, like it's like one of those things. Like, I'm friends with kind of a select, but it's not like we go out to lunch and it's not like we do stuff. It's just more of like, you know, like, hey, happy birthday on Facebook, or like, oh, I like your post on Instagram, or whatever else it is. Or, you know, it's that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, because it's not going to have any value in your current relationship.
That's accurate, man. I have nothing to add because I just agree with everything you said.
I mean, you know, and you could say, well, I mean, that's just your opinion. Absolutely.
Right.
But, you know, 10 out of 10 therapists probably agree.
Yeah, I'm also just one of those people.
All my therapists has said, why are you friends? Like, and I've had not a bunch, but a bunch of different ones.
Yes.
All of them. Like, you shouldn't be friends with your exes. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for them.
Right. I mean, as someone that has a really limited bandwidth for friends in general, like I'm the kind of person that can really only have like 5 good friends. That's even being generous. I don't think that, I think if I'm trying to be friends with an ex, it's like you said, there's some ulterior motive about my ego and my believing that I'm a good person or I'm so evolved that I can do this. It's not actually coming from a place of like genuine, this person's my friend. Well, you know what I mean?
So let me say though.
Yes.
You can be very friendly.
Correct.
You can be very nice. You can be polite. You can be helpful. You can be cordial. If someone needs a favor and it feels appropriate and you talk to your current relationship, or if you don't have a current relationship, you could do a favor for a friend.
Yes.
But I mean, in reality, it should fit into your boundaries of what your day is. Like, you shouldn't bend your shit for someone that is no longer. It's like when you get fired from your job, your benefits go with it.
Yes,
you know what I mean. Like, you don't get
0 health
like
care.
There's COBRA for like 6 months. You know what I mean. And then after that, you're like, you gotta get some new insurance.
Yeah, you're done.
You know, and so there's a certain level of like, you know, like you can help people, but you know, it shouldn't be at the cost of your current life, whether that be with someone or without someone.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
I think.
And that just takes time to learn. I think we all, I mean, not we all.
And if you want to be friends with them, wait 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. If
and then see.
If
then
they're
see
that important to you, they will still,
Right.
find a way into your life.
Right.
I believe in that. Test of time.
Well, and I was talking. This is going to sound shitty from the beginning, but it gets better.
Right.
I was talking to one of my friends, and he was like, one of his friends is going to do my podcast, and he said, "You're going to make a new friend." And without hesitation, I said, "It's a pretty exclusive club." You know what I mean? And I don't mean that.
No, first, I'm going to stop
Okay.
you. That sounds like the best thing I've ever heard. That's exactly, I commend this. I don't even think it sounds shitty.
But it's one of those things, like, I'm not saying it's exclusive club like I'm being a dick.
No.
I'm saying, like, this is what I have the bandwidth for.
Yes, you have limited hours, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can only, you can be friends with everybody, but everybody's going to get basically half of you.
Exactly. You have a freaking daughter. You can't just be willy-nilly friends with people.
I mean, like, and like, I mean, she's first.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, they're first.
Yes.
Always.
You ladies.
So, yeah. I mean, like, I tell Aaron all the time, I'm like, nothing can happen. I can't do this by myself. Like,
yes.
I need you in a way of, like, you're my teammate and my partner, and we're this is a partnership, not like I need you, like, in an insecure way.
Yeah, to fulfill me. I literally just
I literally
need you.
Because, like, she does the things that I don't do. We have
interdependent.
Well, I mean,
yes.
like, stuff that I'm strong at, she doesn't she lets me have that, and I let her have.
Mm-hmm.
So then that way, like, we're just hitting it from both sides. I mean, we're a team.
Yes.
And I tell her all the time, we're a team. And if for a week, if I had to pick up the slack for a week or a month or whatever it was, that's what I would do. I'm her teammate. What am I going to do? Like, it's like, well, you didn't come to practice, and I haven't seen you throw a baseball in weeks, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, come on. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I'll make it up. Like, if you can't do it, I'll do it.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? If you need time to rest, basically, I'll be your rest, so. I don't know.
Yes, but no, I mean, friends, limited spaces.
Yes.
Limited. Well, and I think it really depends on your personality type, too. I think a lot of people would call someone friends. Like, the bar isn't so high for being a friend, as in, you just get along well with so many people, and you have a lot of space in your life for kind of like more casual acquaintances. My personality type is like, you're the kind of person that has like 3 friends, and that's your bandwidth. And it's going to be deep, and they're going to be best friends, but that's kind of all I can do.
All right. So this is like a real radical thought.
Yes.
What if in some way
mm-hmm.
you could only be friends on Facebook with people that are your actual, like what you're talking about? Like, these are my 3.
Yeah.
And that's it. Well, and your family. Like, we'll throw in family.
Okay.
But just be like your family and 3 friends.
Yeah. What about it?
I mean,
it'd be sweet.
But one, what would people's Facebooks look like?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
It'd be so different. It'd be so fun.
But I mean, I think for some people it would not be fun, right? Because people that have 3,000 friends,
right,
that aren't influencers,
right?
How many people do you think they're, like, really friends with? How many people could one person actually be that good of friends with?
I don't know how the extroverts
20?
do. Are you an extrovert? Tell me how it goes.
I am not. I am a trained introvert.
What does that mean?
I learned how to be extroverted.
Same. Yeah, I would say I'm a very loud introvert.
Yeah.
Like, I love to talk in these scenarios.
I like to talk. I like to talk in these. But I've also gotten to where I do a lot of listening.
Yes.
But, like, here we're talking a lot. But, like, when I go out with friends and I do a lot of listening.
Yes.
All I do is listening.
Okay. Well, we got 2 introverts here, so I don't know that we can answer the question of how many friends an extrovert could realistically have. I only know what's true for me.
Some
people don't need their alone time.
I would say, I don't know what this makes me. If I really had a realistic Facebook, I would say it couldn't be no more than 20.
Yeah, well, there's people from all phases of your life, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I've got those ride or dies from, like, we don't talk, but yes.
But there's just so many people, like, that you're not really they're acquaintances. They're simply acquaintances.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, how much bandwidth do you have to give to acquaintances?
Right. And I adore so many acquaintances that I have. I really do. Like, I really like them. And I'm like, damn, man, if I had like endless time, we would be best friends. The fact of the matter is, I don't.
So I don't know if this is a tough question, but have you ever had someone that is essentially an acquaintance of yours, but they consider you a friend?
Oh, yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough.
Why do you think there's a miss there? Do you think it's the
I think they have larger bandwidths. I would guess.
Sure. What if you're the only person they consider a friend?
Oh, so that's a different situation.
So, but no, but I think you're right. Okay, so a person can have a large bandwidth.
Yes.
Have a lot of friends.
Yes.
They consider you a friend because they have a lot of friends.
Yes.
Or you could be the only friend that they really feel like they have.
Oh man, I try to not do that anymore.
but so to your point, as an introvert,
right?
That is very hard for an introvert.
Yes.
Why? I mean, I know why, but you say, I want to hear you say why.
And I don't know if this is coming from my stance as an introvert, my stance as a person, the kind of person that becomes a therapist or a life coach, honestly, is that I feel incredibly inappropriately, but incredibly responsible for someone who feels that I am like one of their only friends. And I do a lot of caretaking in my personality type. So if I get the sense that someone needs me.
And that's heavy.
Very heavy. And it's also incredibly conceited on my part. Like I really, to think that someone needs me, no one actually needs me. We're engaging in an unhealthy cycle. If I am someone's only friend, but they are, not someone that I would necessarily be friends with, but I'm engaging with them, then I'm engaging in an unhealthy dynamic because I'm not actually being honest with them.
Or authentic.
Right. I'm not. I'm saving them, I'm caretaking them, which is coming out of some, ego trip of mine, some deficit within me that I feel like I have to do this to prove my worth. In either case, it's like, it's just kind of screwy no matter how you cut it, which is why like I haven't really been involved in a relationship like that since I was a bit younger, because I realized like how fucked up that pattern actually is.
Well, and how bad it is for you.
Definitely bad. It's bad for everyone.
I'm not trying to make that about you, but what I'm trying to say is that when an introvert engages in one of those types of relationships, the other people that are very important to them suffer
completely
because you're being drained by someone
that I don't even. Yeah,
you don't even like. That's and that sounds kind of shitty. But that's also not your responsibility.
Well, and I mean, to be kind of like calculated about it, which sucks, but it's like all relationships are about give and take. So if I'm really not genuinely getting something from someone else other than the ego trip of feeling like I'm saving them, which no human being has the capability of emotionally saving another.
Nope.
That's a story. But if I'm getting nothing else from them other than my own ego trip, then, it will necessarily drain me. And like what I kind of realized that was about was I have this weird story that in order to be worthy, I have to be useful. And so
is that from your parents?
Probably. I mean, we could go on a whole psychoanalysis.
No. But I mean, like what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
Yeah.
And it definitely came from my family dynamic, 100%.
Sure.
Which I don't know if we want to go down, but it's like, but it's definitely a story that I had for a long time, which is like, okay, in order to assure my livability, I need to assure my usefulness. Which is bogus, but that was very much tied into how I operated in the world. So I was always trying to be like of maximal usefulness, which was super draining to me. And then also kind of fucked up to the people that I was engaging with because I was weirdly using them to make myself
feel better.
Yes.
Your intention was wrong.
Correct. And so that's why, I have
that's a hard thing to see.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and as a new therapist, I have to constantly check myself on that. Yes. Because
you have somebody else's ideas and brain and thoughts in your hands.
Yep.
So you have to make sure you're doing right by them and not by you.
Yes.
Right?
That I'm not tripping on. Well, and I think, our society gives a lot of, or at least sometimes gives a lot of credence or credit to therapists being like, oh, wow, they're like fixing me. And it's like, no, a therapist is really just a sounding board for someone to figure out their own shit. Really, that's what we are. We just stand there and we reflect back and we give a space for someone to figure out themselves for themselves.
I had this conversation with this girl, and she goes, tell me what you think I should do.
Oh God, no.
Hang on. And I said, I think you should get a therapist. And she said, I had one. And I said, why do you not have one? She goes, I fired her. And I go, well, why'd you fire her? And she goes, because she wouldn't tell me what to do. And
I was like, wait, that's a beautiful story.
And I was like, that's not her job.
That's a full circle story. That's amazing.
It's not her job.
No, she can't. And if she did, she sucks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it.
I back that statement 100%. Yeah. Like a therapist, now she might make loose suggestions.
Yes.
About, like my therapist suggested, because I have more of an emotional brain than a logical brain. Mm-hmm. She was like, I want you to play Scrabble.
That's literally, a suggestion.
Oh, yeah, that's a suggestion. I mean, like, she didn't like...
A recommendation.
Right. And also, like, I didn't look at, like, that was going to solve my life. You know what I mean?
She's not like, Scrabble is the answer to everything.
Yeah. Just play Scrabble and everything will be fine. Like, that's what my therapist tells me.
Yeah.
But, like, loose suggestions are fine, but, like, their job is not to tell you what to do.
No,
that's bad.
No, that's totally a misunderstanding that so many people continue to have, which, I mean, it makes sense, right? You think like, why else am I paying you $150 an hour? But no, I mean, you're really there to learn from yourself with this person as a vessel for that.
True or false? You have all the answers in you.
True.
Like
100.
How in the fuck would that therapist know all the answers that are inside you? It's her job. It's her job to unlock them for you to figure them out.
Yes.
There's no, there would be no therapist that could keep a job if she had to figure out why you're so fucked up.
Completely impossible.
Right? You have to, like, she's there to facilitate you figuring out.
And to predict how powerful you can be. I mean, I think we can, as therapists, like, delude ourselves into thinking that we're going to figure out this person. But, like, the chances of what's going to happen is, like, they're going to figure it out because of something, like, totally on their own. And it was just the act of going to therapy itself that kind of, like, gave them permission to figure it out.
This is not really on subject, but, like, you know what my favorite thing to do right now is?
What?
Is when I hear my friends talk negatively about themselves, is to correct them.
Ooh.
Like, and I kind of don't, like, sorry, friends, I don't give a shit. Like, I
mean, that's a beautiful thing to do for your friends.
It's kind of like someone will say, I don't know, well, I've looked better, I guess, or something. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, like, you look great now. That's a really shitty example. But the point idea is, like, that when you talk that bad stuff about yourself, especially out loud. So you can guess if someone's talking out loud about it, it is tenfold inside their head. Just
yes,
right.
Yes.
And, like, I don't like that.
No,
I don't. It's not good for you. It's not good for, like, who you want to be. It's not good for setting up your environment the way you want it to be. It's the same thing as I say is like if you don't believe your bullshit, who else is going to fucking believe? Like, you have to believe in yourself, and you're not going to get there telling yourself you're a piece of shit.
Right. It's also not good for the people you're around too.
Yeah, they don't like sorry, people around, they don't want to hear it.
Well, and it's
great friends will listen. Great, and those are great friends. You should definitely keep those friends around. If you bitch and moan and those friends are just always there to lift you up, they are great friends. But remember, because they care about you, that's also heavy on them. And then on top of that, if they are introverted, it's real heavy on them.
Right. Well, and it goes beyond just bearing the burden of someone else. I think it's also...
That was a kind of a tangent of a thing.
No, it was lovely. I think that, I mean, it's a really interesting thing that we do so often. And I think also it works the other way around too. You said it's like, oh, if they're speaking and it must be running constantly in their head. I think it's socially acceptable / encouraged to be really self-deprecating. So I think people might even start out just by putting themselves down as a means of making themselves more likable. Then they do it so often that it also conversely then, like, lodges itself in there. I think it can go both ways, because being, like, really confident and positive about yourself is not exactly, like, socially seamless. I don't know. Especially among women. I don't know how it is with men. But
so if we come back to, like, intention, so, like, I because I do this, I love interviewers, I love studying, and say what you want. Howard Stern's great at interviewing people, right? But he always talks down about himself the whole time. He's always putting himself down. But he also does like a ton of therapy. So I always think that like, he's doing this charming thing where he kind of puts himself like down, but I'm almost 100% sure he doesn't believe it, right? You know what I mean? And you also don't believe that he believes it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's all in this weird way. It's authentic.
Yes.
It's very authentic.
Well, then that's humor, right? He's doing it well.
But when you do believe it, it is obvious in the same kind of way. Like people can feel and see that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like when you are insecure and you're talking down like that, people don't perceive it as like, oh, like he's being jokey
right
all the time, I guess. Some people perceive that as like, no, he's talking bad about himself.
Right.
Now it makes me question, like, if I should, like, maybe those people are just maybe they really are being jokey.
I don't know. I think, again, it's not even what they're saying. It's how you hear it. So what I was saying before, it's not good for the people you're around. It's not just because it's annoying or whatever. It's also, we all live in, well, maybe not we all, but I certainly live in a place that is self-critical. And so if someone is criticizing themselves and I'm working consciously towards seeing myself more favorably or with more compassion, but someone's, someone who I care about is talking down about themselves, it's like, oh, well, I guess I should be talking down about myself too. As much as we are individuals, we also are very social creatures. And if someone we care about is like shitting on themselves, then we're going to say like, oh, damn, I guess I also, don't look very good either. And it has an effect, right?
One thing we do that I really take very seriously is that we don't talk negatively about ourselves in front of my daughter.
Oh my God, that's so important.
Because, and like when it happens, like we straight up call each other out. Don't do that.
That's so important.
And again, it's back to like you said, 0 to 7, the influence you have as a parent, like all that stuff. But like, all this is like so new, like coming, like I said, like, having this last therapist and getting to hear, this is also like new for me to think in this way, to think outside of myself.
Oh, it's so good.
So see, tell me if this makes sense. I made this up, I think. I don't know. Okay. So there is like covert narcissism, right? And there's empathy, right? And like they make like a circle like this, and then they kind of butt up against each other, and like you can be doing something in a covert narcissistic way and think you're being empathetic, but you're really not. And that has to do with intention. So it's like they're real like close and they're very similar, but what's your intention? Is that, I don't know.
Can you give me an example of when covert narcissism and empathy would almost touch?
If you go, well, I'm going to do a favor for a friend. Okay. So why are you doing this favor? Are you doing this favor because of your how's the saying go? Helping people is your rent paid here on earth.
Yep.
Or are you going, when I need to move something,
yes,
I'm calling Bobby or whatever, right?
Yes. Or everyone's gonna think I'm so great. And
right. Or like how dare you not help me? I helped you.
Yes.
That's where I
power
think
play.
So what's your intention behind what you do? That makes a difference. And I'm sure probably someone smarter than me kind of thought of similar things or whatever, but that I just know that like a lot of my life, I did a lot of stuff expecting the same respect in return and not really realizing that like that's what I wanted. I thought I was like doing all this good, but I was calculating in the back of my mind. I was calculating and adding up and tallying and doing all this stuff, even though it did feel good to do things for people.
Right.
But it wasn't pure. It wasn't 100% authentic. There was a little bit of like you owe me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate. But I think that's also age and everything else.
Have you heard of or read any on codependence?
No, but I would assume
it's a term that gets thrown out a lot. And I finally...
a lot of my therapists told me I was codependent. So
you probably are. Well, and there's the quote. So the famous book on it is called Codependent No More. It's pretty old. It's like one of the top 4 self-help books of all time, written by this woman who, she was not exactly like a scientist or anything. She was just a, what do you call it? A therapist for people that were substance abusers. She herself is a recovering addict. And so codependents are traditionally placed in opposition to addicts as the partners traditionally of addicts who enable them by taking care of them and are necessarily really affected by the addiction because it's wreaking havoc on their life as well. But what she distills it down to as a codependent is someone who tries to control others as a means of neglecting oneself. And the control of others takes a lot of forms, but one of which is to do favors and to kind of prostrate yourself before others as this way of really kind of trying to manipulate them and to calculate into somehow controlling their behavior. It's a really kind of complicated and diasparate term, but
I think it's very broad.
Totally.
Right? It covers a lot. Because when you were talking, I was thinking, I feel like that happens a lot on social media.
Right? How so?
Just the kind of like, look at all the good things that I'm doing. Like I helped this guy with no legs or whatever else. Like it's like, look at me.
Yes.
Like, look at how great this is like going. And that's all like very self-serving.
Yes. Well, and it's really complicated too, because I really, paired with all the stuff that I truly believe about how, we are only responsible for ourselves and we are everything that we react to in others is a reflection of ourselves and all these sorts of things. At the same time, we're not islands. We're inherently social creatures. We absolutely need other human beings in order to live a full and healthy life. So things like codependence or these things that you're talking about are always going to come into play. It's not like an avoidable thing. It's just a matter of keeping them in balance.
And the thought that keeps running through my head is like, you are responsible for you.
Yes.
You are responsible for you.
Yes.
At the end of the day, you're responsible for you.
Correct.
And so, again, to go to your therapist is for you to figure out, right? And if you figure out you're codependent, it's your responsibility to break those habits and set those boundaries.
Totally.
Right. And all that shit's really hard.
Yes.
But it's worth it.
Yes.
It's very worth it.
Especially because you can see and this is the weird part, right? Because you don't want to do it for this reason. But the crazy thing is that when you start to take radical accountability for yourself, it really changes the dynamic between you and the people in your life. It really does influence. I don't want to say it influences them, but it completely changes how you show up in a dynamic when you take full responsibility for yourself. It just hits different.
Well, when you're taking full responsibility for yourself, you understand that you don't have any room or time to take responsibility for anybody else's stuff.
Right.
Because you're solely responsible for this. It's a very big responsibility to be responsible for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so you go, there's not time. It's not my shit. That's not, I got to do this. Like, you know what I mean? And so then, I don't know, to me, the boundaries get a little bit easier.
Yes.
But all boundaries are just whatever you're comfortable with.
Right.
It's all your decision. So if someone crosses them, well, either you need to set a harder boundary or you need to at least look at it and see what it's worth. You know what I mean? But that's not that. Somebody like, oh, by the way, people are always going to push your boundaries. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like a thing like you set them and then nobody shows up.
Yeah, it's like that's just the beginning.
Yeah, it's just like The Walking Dead. It's like they build a wall and then the zombies knock it down and they build another wall and they're just always building walls. But like,
yes.
The boundaries are there because people are gonna try to push them.
Always.
So you have to set those and you have to be cool with those.
Oh yeah, you do. Oh man, that's something they don't teach in school. I wish they did.
Yes. What was your therapist's opinion about this? So I'm making her a playlist of all the music that we listen to together.
Oh, so good.
And the way I came up with this was I went to my mom and I said, what did you listen to when I was a kid? And so she gave me all these bands and stuff like that. And so I put a lot of what she told me, and then I put a lot of what I kind of remember, which is probably way past like being very little, but like what felt like home. And then it's not always if like I'm having like a bad day, but just like if I don't know what to listen to on the radio or I'm not in the mood for anything, I use that playlist.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm building a playlist for Lucy of the same sort. She might never take it. She might not care. But like I'm just building it. But also it has like really dirty rap songs on it. And like it's just like it's everything. Because my parents, the one thing I really loved about my parents is they didn't censor me in the way of like they would let me listen to any kind of music.
Yeah, that you
and just say like don't say the cuss words.
Yeah.
Which I think was fine. I cuss like a sailor now, but I don't think it's because I listen to dirty rap music. I think
also,
it's just the way it's the way I talk, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but like, music being therapy in that way, it's very therapeutic.
Oh, that's the best music too. I mean, like now, the music I listen to or feel the most emotional connection to is for sure the music that my parents played growing up. It's for sure like Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell, 100%.
But it's like, it's a lot of times it's really good background noise. It's almost like weirdly, it's like the soundtrack of your life playing kind of while you're doing other shit or whatever. Yeah,
it just makes you feel like safe. It's kind of like those like anchors to the beginning of your life.
And also not a lot, but some of the music that's on my daughter's playlist is music that was on my playlist.
Yeah, exactly.
That I would get from my parents, like makes me think of my mom and dad. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. And with my girlfriend being a musician, it makes sense, like, she brings an aspect to the table of like playing the piano with her and doing all this other stuff that I can't do.
Epic.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I want to listen to her music. I'm eager. Does she play in Austin?
No.
Okay. Are you working on that? Is she working on that?
Well, I'm always pushing her to do anything that she wants to do. Like just
Fair.
Because like I'm supportive of any ideas that she has, because that's why, one, that's why we're here, right? But two, like this is one of the most important people in my life. I should be like fucking Lion King, like holding her up and going like, you can do, and I tell her all the time, I go, you can do anything.
She looks like a rock star. She should definitely be on stage.
Well, I mean,
if she wants to.
I think if she had her choice, she would do like a Sia, like, you know what I mean? Like a wig where you can't see her eyes and she would just play and sing, you know what I mean? She's that kind of vibe.
Gotcha.
But you never know.
That's awesome.
She was always like, she's like, challenge me. I'm challenging you right now. Throwing it down, throwing it on the gauntlet.
Do it.
All right. So let's talk, okay. It is meditative alternate states.
Yes.
Okay. So what are meditative alternate states?
It's kind of what we were talking about before. It's trance. It's being able to feel completely in this unreal way while being sober.
Is there different types? Is there different kinds?
I've noticed that there are. So, I flatteringly refer to myself as a psychonaut, which means I'm, fascinated in different states of consciousness, which yes means I, as a teen and as a person love to explore drugs and so forth. But it's since morphed into the idea that our brains are these unlimited and vast expanses. And it's like, how and when do we actually take time to explore that? And to me, the coolest way to do that is to kind of create your own experience by going into these altered states of consciousness. So be that through meditation or hypnosis, or it really is just in those like very simple scenarios of getting quiet, closing your eyes, and then seeing what happens.
Okay. Yes. Without throwing yourself under the bus.
Yes. I'll throw myself under the bus. You can
Well, I guess what I was going to say is, did you find in your experience in using outside stuff?
Yes.
Did you find it effective in putting you into a state where you can receive? Like, was it a positive, or was it just like this just recreational? I just did it for fun, but like, or was it a thing of like there was a certain level of like, it like people talk to like ayahuasca mushrooms,
right?
Weed, like that it unlocks a part of their brain that they or what like DMT they couldn't get into before. Right. Is that like, are you a proponent? I don't know what I'm asking. Like,
yeah,
what are I'm just asking your general thoughts, I think is what I'm asking.
Totally. And I'm neither like, I'm not one of those like, I hate to say it, but they're like the bros that are just like psychotropics are going to save the species.
Sure.
I'm not like staunchly that way, nor am I
because it's not for everybody.
I don't think it's for everybody. And I also just think there's more to be had. I think it's an excellent gateway, weirdly. I think drugs are a great gateway into sober fun. What I mean by that is that I think for some people, it does take some kind of outside substance.
If you open your mind, you don't necessarily have to lean on substance anymore. If it might came through substance,
right?
But you don't necessarily have to lean on it anymore,
right?
Like you would lean on alcohol because of insecurities or whatever, right?
Right. And I think for like like psychedelics, or in terms of opening your mind, I think for the people who thought that was impossible, that like, no, I'm just Craig, and this is my job, and this is my life, and I'm there's not more to me than that. For Craig, I think him taking a psychedelic might, open him up to the possibility that he is, in fact, this infinite creative being. Or. But I don't think that's necessary.
Well, I was saying, or Craig could severely abuse it and go further in the wrong direction.
Or Craig could totally do that. I think psychedelics.
I guess what I'm saying is like, this also is a certain level of responsibility, right? Like, like if you decide that you want to use some sort of outside substance, you have to be it needs to be responsible decisions too.
For sure.
You can't just drop a bunch of acid and then think like all my problems are going to melt away because I'm going to see whatever, or whatever.
100% not. It's interesting. I have this other thought coming in. So my last internship in my grad school program, I was working for 7 months at a rehab for teen boys, residential. And very few of those boys would touch psychedelics. And for those who had experimented with them, that was definitely not their drug of choice. So maybe I have this weird bias that I don't necessarily think that psychedelics lend themselves to abuse in the same way that other substances do. That's not to say people don't abuse them or don't use them beyond their realm of, what is healthy or useful to you. But I do think like psychedelics are sort of in a bit of a different class in that they're not going to make your problems disappear. They're definitely going to, if there are problems, potentially, in my experience, amplify them.
Yes.
So it's a little bit different than blitzing out on alcohol or cocaine or something that's really going to just like erase that for you. That being said, there are people who, you could just go way too far down, like in any extreme. You can take any extreme, right? Moderation, moderately good podcast, man. I mean, it's just, but that's definitely true. And I think that if you use them as part of the picture, but not the entire picture, you're going to get a lot of use out of them. If you lean, like you were saying, lean entirely upon them as your entire connection to like the divine or to altered states, like
it's like you're running in quicksand. It's like you're not really you probably feel like you're going somewhere, but you're not really going anywhere.
I feel like you're not going that far
because you're staying stuck because you're not processing the real problem. You're just kind of
getting fucked up, which is a definite possibility. You can definitely just get fucked up.
But like and sometimes it just like you kind of want to get fucked up.
I get that.
Do it safely.
Yes.
Maybe at home. Not go anywhere. But like sometimes you're just like, man, I want to have a lot of alcohol and be hungover tomorrow.
Right.
Like I just want to feel. But I mean, I'm not saying that's great. I'm just saying like I don't know.
Everyone has their right but with the psychedelic thing and beyond, running in quicksand, I think you're also just going to get disappointed. I think there's only so far you can go if you truly believe that your only channel to that is through the drug, if that makes sense. You have to realize that and this is maybe an obvious statement, but it continues to blow my mind. The drug just triggers things in your brain that were already possible.
Right.
The drug isn't magic. The drug is opening up like, oh yeah, this is all stuff in your brain that was already there, which is wild to me, right? Like all of these feelings of expansion exist.
Is that your unconscious?
Maybe. I mean, yes, it's the untapped part of our brain.
It has to be, right?
It's the 99 to 95% of our brain that we don't have conscious access to.
Right.
The kind that, could see kaleidoscopes or whatever you're going to experience with the psychedelics.
See that ship on that picture where, you know what I mean? Like where it's, you remember those pictures that like, they look like a bunch of squiggly lines?
Magic eyes.
Yes. And then
I always love magic eye.
Really?
Yes.
Could you do them all the time? Are you really good at it? Like, could you get them really quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I was just like a weird, like if I had a worse childhood, I would definitely be an addict. That's how I feel at this point in my life, which sounds like a weird thing to admit, but I feel a lot of, maybe this is a total tangent. I feel a lot of kinship with addicts. I feel like I really understand where that tactic comes from. And I think had things been a little bit different for me, that would have been a road I went down.
I think that probably a lot of us are a couple of bad decisions away from having a very different path.
Completely. Yeah.
I mean, I can think of a handful of events in my life that if it had gone a different way, I mean, and that could have been better.
Right.
But like, it
had
gone
different paths.
Yeah. But like,
but
this was my path.
Yes.
I guess, you know what I mean? But like, I'm also like now, like every day I'm just like, you're still here.
Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah. You're still here. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a lot more appreciative than I was before. I think losing part of like that self, like that ego, losing part of your ego makes you very appreciative of what you have.
Yes.
Like when you have that ego, you're like, well, everything I haven't gotten enough.
Yeah. It's always in deficit. Right.
Really quickly. So what you were talking about before, where you said you worked in that boys.
Rehab for teen boys.
I want to clarify what you were saying. So you're saying that most of the kids that were in there were for drugs other than psychedelics. So they're like cocaine, alcohol, things like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Meth.
And the kids that had tried them in there, that was not their drug of choice. No. Their drug of choice was cocaine, alcohol, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah. I think it was things to numb out.
And so I feel like what I'm hearing you say is that like, that the people in there, that there was no one that was trying to use a drug to open their mind to think for themselves. There was just a bunch of people just numbing pain and just trying to forget about it.
Yeah.
And that was, it was consistent almost over the whole group, no matter whether they had tried psychedelics before or not.
Right.
And the ones that tried it were like, no, because that's not what they wanted. They didn't want to open. They're probably like, they opened the door like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I was in a lot of interviews with the kids that were new that were coming in. So most of them were there for like around 4 months. And when asked about, I was there for the intake. And so they would ask, tons of questions about their entire drug history and history in general. And they would ask if they had tried any psychedelics. And usually the response was like, oh, once, but fuck no. Or like, or oh, fuck no, I would never. It was this very like, which was interesting because when I was their age, I think I was definitely so curious about all that stuff. I wanted to try all the things. I was like obsessed with the 60s. You have a Jimi Hendrix shirt on. Yeah. It was all about that. So I was like, what? You're not into that? But no, they were definitely after something different than I was when I was their age. I think they wanted to feel kind of numbed out, or in the case of cocaine, they wanted to feel really powerful, but no matter what it was, they didn't
want to feel like themselves.
They just didn't want to feel like themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which I get.
I think, I don't know. I think that sometimes when people smoke weed and they get real paranoid, a lot of that paranoia is like starting to really see things about yourself that you're like not used to, the kind of like, ooh, shit. Like ooh. I don't know. Maybe no.
No, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I feel that way about weed. I'm not into it because I can't chill on it.
Right.
It just feels to me like it feels like a mental workout to me.
But I think I can understand that, and I think also for some people that don't. If you want to work out, it's like this is so stupid. It's like a personal trainer for your brain. Like for some people, it makes their wires all connect, right? And then their brain wants to work out, right? Like wants to work. And I think for some people is that their brains probably are working and they could be working too much or they're just working. When you add that to it, it's like, this is like overload. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've always found it to be completely system overload.
But back to kind of the point we were making before, which was like, not everything's for everybody.
Yes.
Right. And I think also kind of what you're saying about like the drug thing is that like, if your intention is to try to truly open your mind and learn something new,
yes,
then that could be a net positive.
Right.
If you're just there to like get fucked up or like numb something, I mean, you ain't doing no good.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, like that. And that is really seriously not in judgment of people who feel the need to numb, because I get that pain can sometimes feel totally unmanageable. The thing about emotional pain is that it will out. The truth will out. It's going to come out sometime. So when we numb, we're really just delaying that. And I think that's kind of an important piece to recognize.
Is that how people become alcoholics?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone becomes an addict without some kind of significant source of pain. I don't think it's like this accidental thing. That's
and we're just going to go out on a limb and say that happens the first 7 years of their life.
It's probably. Right. And of course, there are people who are going to tend towards, you could have a really traumatic childhood, but, alcohol just really doesn't suit you or you really just don't have that kind of wiring. And so you'll not necessarily turn towards substances. But I think so much of human behavior, whether you have a substance use disorder or not, is an attempt to escape the pain.
I thought of something while you were talking.
Go.
Someone that is bulimic or anorexic, right? That is also an addiction, correct?
Yes.
What would be your strategy? Like, those kinds of things are they fall on my mind because I feel like it's so easy, and especially now for girls to fall into, and because I have a daughter.
Yep.
Like I'm like, okay, well. I mean, I got you here right now. What would be your strategy in around kind of making that not happen?
Oh, man. I mean, so I'm not an expert in eating disorders by any means.
Hey, this is your own personal expert.
That's my own personal exploration. I mean, so luckily, I did have a struggle with anorexia when I was younger. I actually went to boarding school. And so my first year away at boarding school was so stressed and so homesick and felt like I really couldn't control anything about my life. But you could
control that.
That I could control.
Right.
That I had power over. And so it's a combination of so many things that would lead a young person to mistreat themselves in that way. I think a lot of it does have to do, like speaking of your daughter, with diet culture and like, how does her mom talk about her weight? How does her mom, talk about diets? And
how do we represent that? Yes,
totally. Because and I love my mom to death, but I'm not gonna, I grew up in the 90s and, everyone was talking about like diet culture. Everyone was on a diet at some point, and like
everybody had leg warmers.
Oh, the leg warmers were out of sight. So yeah, I mean, there were totally like factors that seeped in at a young age, but really, I mean, there's only so much you can prevent. We live in a world that really prioritizes thinness and puts it on this pedestal. But I think the biggest thing that can occur with anyone who's having some kind of compulsive behavior, some kind of self harming type behavior, which I would say eating disorders are self-harming. I don't know if the authorities would say that. Is that what is the thing that you are avoiding by doing that?
Why are you feeling the need to force control over something because what's feeling out of control?
Yes.
That you feel like that you need to control something.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. And what is the, to me, it would be like, what is the greater pain that you are avoiding by focusing and saying that your pain has to do with your weight? Because like you might have this, you might be dissatisfied with your body shape or something, right? But what are you neglecting to focus on that? And there's always some bigger pain. For me, it was loneliness. I felt, lack of belonging. Really just like wanting to be loved and accepted and feeling at home. And I felt so scared and uncomfortable. So the easier thing to tackle, because tackling that felt impossible at 14 years old. And I couldn't even like put words to what I was feeling. So I could instead say, well, I feel awful. And the reason must be my body, because that I know what to do.
Was that experience for you? Was that unavoidable? Or do you think it would, if like 10 out of 10 times it would happen the exact same way? Like, do you think there's a way that it could have been avoided?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It might have been. It might have been. I think it's hard to know. And this is where I get a little bit spiritual. So, and that sort of led to me. I had a really smart therapist at the time who was kind of wise enough to see that I wasn't actually falling totally under the diagnosis of anorexic, but that I was depressed. That really it was this like this deep depression that was leading to it.
How do they diagnose between the two? I can understand how they could be separate, like that you could show symptoms of this but not have this.
Totally.
But what are the things that they look for to go, okay, this is probably a problem with being anorexic versus just being depression? Do you know?
Well, I think.
Or what was your experience?
Yeah, my experience of that was, I think they were, in the course of sort of interviewing me, they were realizing that I wanted to be happy more than I wanted to be thin.
Right.
And I think, because what happened is I was expressing my dissatisfaction because I was saying, hey, I lost all this weight and I got to the weight that I wanted to be. And I was expecting to feel better, but I don't. I feel worse. So riddle me that.
Right.
As this kid, I was just coming in and being like, I'm at my goal weight or whatever. And I'm still miserable and I don't want to live my life like this. So I think they were able to parse out that I wasn't so trapped in the eating disorder, that the eating disorder was the priority. I was able to verbalize that my happiness was the priority and the eating disorder had failed me. And so I was looking for alternatives.
When did you have your first therapist?
When I was 15. Yeah. So it was this summer after my freshman year at boarding school.
What, who did you initiate that or did your parents initiate that?
I initiated it, which was, I think my parents like found the therapist, et cetera.
Well, no, but like it was your idea.
Yeah. Or I just, it was this, something overtook me because I in my head, I was not going to tell my parents that I was having this struggle because it was embarrassing and I wanted to continue to, I was thinking maybe I want to continue losing weight or whatever. But yeah, the drive for happiness was always greater. So my mom saw me and she commented that I had like lost a bunch of weight and she asked me what was, going on. And I said, well, I just kind of told her, I was like, well, I stopped eating. And yeah, and
hindsight being 2020, you could always make better decisions, right? But I think that when I asked you earlier, like, could have anything avoided that? Your parents are your parents; they're not therapists, right? But there might have been other questions. She kind of maybe could have come at that a different way, as not to give like the typical question and then the typical answer, which is like, hey, I see you lost weight. What's up with you? Oh, nothing. You know what I mean? Like you have to go that way kind of doesn't work.
Right.
Because you're going to get the stereotypical, like sterile answers. You got to kind of find another way to come about it. Like, you know what I mean? But I don't even know what that would look like. Does that make sense? Maybe. I think. Oh, by the way, Hannah's mom, I'm not saying you did a bad job. I'm not second guessing anything. I'm just saying like, we should strive to try to find these answers for our kids and stuff.
Right.
Right?
Yes. I mean, oh man, it's hard to know. I mean, I think this is going to sound lofty, but bear with me. So I think, my parents did the good enough parent. You've heard of the good enough mother, right?
I mean, they did which is what every parent is hopefully striving to do, right? Yeah.
They did the good enough job to truly make me feel, at the end of the day, they did a lot right to make me feel that I was worthy of love and happiness. To the point where my will for love and happiness, I think, superseded any kind of will to harm myself. So in that moment when my mom asked me that question, I deeply wanted her to see me. Like, I was in immense pain, but I wanted out. And the part of me that wanted out, I think I can accredit to my parents loving me enough to know that life had to be better than this. So that's what my parents did, if that makes sense. Like, I think they just made me feel like, in loving me, they made me feel that I deserved to have a life that was not miserable.
Yes.
And that made me fight for myself in the way that I did. Instead of fighting for my eating disorder, I fought for my lovability.
I think a big epiphany for me was dealing with the idea of feeling very suicidal and then realizing that it's not really that I want to kill myself. I just don't want to be wherever I'm at that time, whatever that is.
Totally.
And there's a big difference between those two.
Yes.
Right. And the faster you figure that out, the more precise and better help you can get.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're two very different situations. And you need to decide if you really want help, you need to decide which one of those it is and then get the appropriate help. Right?
Yes.
That was kind of a tangent.
No, it's not at all, though. I think there is, and I think that is a fear that I think a lot of people express. They're like, I'm afraid to talk about my suicidal ideation because I'm afraid that I'm immediately going to be like sent off to a psych ward. I think that's a weirdly common thing that I hear. Whereas, like, I think suicidal ideation or contemplating suicide, not making a plan necessarily, but considering it or thinking about it is more common than we might imagine. It's just that people don't like to talk about it because they're afraid that it, like, even saying the S word, you're going to be like, put in a straitjacket and sent away.
The one thing that I fear about what's kind of like, this is a total sidebar, but one thing I fear about like our society is we're going, okay, we want to embrace you and all your mental health and we want to be helpful, right? But what if the people that are wanting the help are doing it for the wrong reasons and the wrong intent? And then are we really helping them? Does that make sense?
In what scenario?
In a scenario of like I tell people that I'm going to kill myself because I want attention, not because I truly want to kill myself.
Okay.
And so then we go, oh, we're embracing all the mental, we're embracing it all come to us. But then it becomes something that I talk forward about, like it becomes my story of that, like I wanted to kill myself and now this is very self-serving. And are we perpetuating that by, I mean, that's kind of a cynical way to kind of look at it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a very real possibility because I feel like I don't feel like I haven't not kind of seen hints of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think about that. I think about that a lot.
So you're saying the people that
I want to help people that want help.
Right.
I don't want to encourage bad intent behavior.
Yes.
I don't want to encourage someone to get, I would be encouraging to make them worse.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Right. So, and there's like, that's a fairly common scenario, right? That there are, and I wouldn't say counter argument, but my counter, my counter to that would be anyone who is threatening suicide or talking about suicide, be it a real intention or a false one, is not well.
Yes.
They're not well.
And let me say, I would take 100% serious.
Right. Yeah, no, but then that is something to examine because there are people, we would call them like personality disorders, where someone often threatens suicide but doesn't necessarily intend to follow through. And it is like attention-seeking behavior. But attention-seeking behavior is also a symptom of a problem that needs addressing. And so hopefully a good therapist or psychiatrist would be able to suss that out.
Or hypnotherapist.
Or a hypnotherapist.
I mean,
I don't know. I mean, that's complicated, right? I mean, that's very, very tricky stuff where you have to, obviously you want to be on your client's side and put them first. At the same time, you do need to be evaluating for certain traits that would predispose them towards lying or seeking attention, because those are symptoms of a problem. It's just maybe not the problem that they're presenting.
This happens in my job, so I'm sure it probably happens in your job, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, if I ask a client, like we're trying to lose weight or whatever, mm-hmm. and it's not happening and I'm going like, well, what are you eating? Let's see what you're eating. Mm-hmm. And they're eating amazingly, mm-hmm. but it's just not happening. Now, there could be many reasons why that could be, or it could be they're not eating as well as they
or they're lying. Yeah.
Think. Yeah.
I think humans lie a lot.
Well, I mean, so
I lie.
So I think we have a natural tendency to lie, but a bad place to lie, or one that can be just like incredibly counterproductive for you, would be to your therapist.
Oh yeah, and people lie to their therapist all the time,
right? Yeah. And like, I mean, I've lied to a therapist before.
Same.
I mean,
Big
I'm
time.
not. Yeah. I mean, I would assume like probably when you're a lot younger, you probably lied more, and then over time you lied less, right?
Yes.
I think that's pretty natural progression if you stay with it, right? Mm-hmm. But when I realized that like I literally was going to gain no ground by lying, I started going 100% truth all the time. Didn't give a shit how bad it made me look or whatever, because I was like, I'm here to do work.
And it's so hard to do that.
But like, I mean, like, also there was a part of me that was like, man, this is $150 an hour and I'm paying this out of my pocket. Like I want to make, like, it's how I would feel if I had a personal trainer.
Yes.
I would want a person that takes their job seriously and gives me the value of what I'm paying, and that I give them that same effort.
Totally.
Right. Because you're already paying for it. Like, and there's a lot of ways to get therapy for free. Right.
Yes.
Or cheap or whatever. I mean, on some level you get what you pay for.
Yes.
But there's plenty of ways to help yourself.
So many. Yes.
But you have to, still you have to do it, and you have to participate, and you have to be engaged, and you have to not lie. Like,
oh yeah. It's so up to you what you get out of therapy. It's excruciating.
I think that's why, I think sometimes why there's a couple reasons why people quit. One of them being that like they don't want to reveal their real self or come to terms with it. 2, they're lying so much it's not working, right? Or 3, they just get frustrated with it. Like, am I on board with any of this? Mm-hmm. Like, any other reasons why someone would quit therapy, you think?
It could be the therapist said something that really like rubbed them the wrong way, triggered them, and that could be maybe a thing that they needed to hear, or it could have been something like the therapist just said something and it bothered them, but they weren't able to, or didn't feel safe to. I also want to give like clients, credit here. Like sometimes therapists say dumb shit. I've had therapists say dumb shit to me and I didn't see them again. And I've heard crazy stories of my friends seeing therapists that said things that would just never be the kinds of stuff that they tell you explicitly in school never to say.
But they're human. They're humans.
They're human, and look, I mean, they're good. Not all therapists are the best. So
hey, not all personal trainers are the best.
Exactly. So they could just be, they said something crappy, and you don't feel either the desire to confront your therapist about it, even though that process can be so freaking therapeutic. It's really hard to confront your therapist. It's hard. Or they're just like, well, this person is just clearly so not a good fit for me that I'm going to leave. And that's a huge part of it.
That's also very possible. Like, like I've had a lot of therapists, some better than others. I don't think they could have been bad therapists, or they could have just been a bad fit for me.
Totally. I mean, it's like dating.
Also, you got to know, like, when to cut. You got to know when this isn't working anymore.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you think that you're not getting anything out of it, don't go back. Like, I mean, there could be many reasons why you're doing that.
Yes.
But I mean, at the end of the day, don't pay for something that like you don't think's working.
Oh, totally. And I
get
have,
another one, preferably, right?
totally. With my most recent therapist that I'm going to now, I had to tell them, like, I told her up front, like, all my patterns of why I like would have dipped out of therapy before. And I'm like, and in my case, for all of them except one, it was some kind of thing of like I was really hiding from the real issues. And I am, and maybe I totally wasn't fooling my therapist, but because I have a lot of like, you know, jargon and I have the emotional intelligence to kind of like make it seem like I know what's going on, and maybe I can like kind of hide things maybe a little bit more artfully than your average person. Maybe I'm flattering myself. I don't know. But
Well,
I would.
all I like to think is maybe you do, and maybe you don't.
And maybe I don't.
And maybe the therapist lets you onto it. Like maybe you can read her and you think you're getting one over on her, or maybe she doesn't. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. Which is why I told my therapist, I'm like, look, no matter what I say, just please
do your best. Do your best
call
job
me on it.
Yeah, like do your best. Like I need you to do your best job, right? Yeah.
And like call me on it. Like tell me when I'm just like, when I'm like freaking psychoanalyzing myself and guarding myself, and when I'm hiding. Please just like call me on it. I will love you for it. So yeah, I kind of just told her like up front, like, here are my tactics that I use to hide from the real work. That's what I need you to be aware of, because I'm like, otherwise I will just.
Well, you're there to do work.
Well, now I am.
Yeah.
I thought I was there before to do work, but you know, it's always like a new level the older you get.
What? Okay. Did you have like an epiphany moment in therapy where like it all shifted and changed, like where your thought process from kind of when you started to what it is now, or maybe just me?
Well,
because I remember mine so vividly.
Your therapy click?
Yeah, because you kind of brought it up about like somebody saying something that you didn't like.
Yes.
So I had this therapist, and I mean, she talked shit about my mama.
Oh.
And I was like,
oh damn.
I was like,
yes.
nobody talks about my mama, right? And so I didn't go back for like 2-3 weeks. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, why'd she bring that up? Why is that bothering you so much? Why are you so like, why was that the thing?
Why was that such a thing?
And so then when I wanted to know, I went back, and then that's when everything just like changed. Now, I mean,
good for you for going back. That's awesome.
Yeah, but like now you're talking like in my journey, that was like 10 years in.
Yes.
So like I could have easily, like 10 years, I could have easily quit. But like I would venture to say the 10 years was preparing me for that one moment to get to where I am now.
10 years with one therapist?
No. I had 2 in college because they were free.
Yeah, love that.
And then I think I had one before her, and then her, and then another one, and then my last one that I had. And, oh, by the way, like you're a therapist, and you have a therapist, right? I haven't had one for a while. And then recently I was like, you know, I really think I'm gonna get a therapist. And it's just simply because in all the responsibility of the relationship I have with my girlfriend, adding my issues and problems to the plate, where I do tell her how I feel about things, or vent moments, or ask, you know, like, what do you think, or blah, blah, whatever. I think having someone that I take that shit and dump it on, that I'm giving money to.
So
and
good.
That you know what I mean? That is professionally trained to do that.
Yes.
Makes this relationship better.
Oh, it's such a gift.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing. That's the way you want to look at therapy, is like,
oh, truly.
It's like Tiger Woods has like 10 he had like 10 trainers at one point or something like that. Like, you know, everybody doing everything. Like, so why if you're not good at it, why wouldn't you want to hire, just like you would hire a personal trainer or an accountant or a therapist?
Completely.
Right.
And like speaking strictly as a therapy client, not as a therapist, it's just so nice to have someone that I don't have to worry about that reciprocal, like, am I supporting them enough? Am I putting in enough? It's so nice to just write a check and know that their job is to show up and listen. It really is relieving.
My mom, this will make sense, I promise. My mom told me this story about like how like they had this cat whenever she was little, and it got pregnant, and they had all these kittens. and they put an ad in the newspaper, like giving them away for free, and they couldn't get rid of any of them. And then they put an ad in the paper for like $5.
I love it.
And sold them all.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
Like the money, the transaction creates value.
Oh yeah.
And boundaries and ideas and a map. It's a necessary evil.
Oh, God bless. I love it.
Right.
I've gotten to the point in my life too where I look for therapists that charge more, and it's not
I'm not at that point yet. I'm not. I like. God, hey, God bless you, Cheryl. Like, I mean, I must love you because you're not cheap. So
yes, I mean, and that's not to say that I actually believe someone who charges more is a better therapist. For me, it's very psychological. Like you were saying with the kittens, it's like we want to know that we have skin in the game. And I also want to know that my therapist is willing to, I don't even know if I can really describe it, but I want to know that they're willing to charge an amount of money that kind of like puts us in agreement that we are here to do work. That like no one is doing anyone favors here. We're there to work. And I'm sure, I'll get like flack for that, especially like coming from social work. But I really do believe in charging money.
Like, again, it's kind of like a boundary, right?
Yes.
Like you are setting that boundary and the value for what you are.
Yes.
You can charge $1,000 an hour.
Exactly. If you want.
If you want. And if someone pays that, well, then great.
That's going to be a different energy.
Right. I mean, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things like where, like, I mean, on a little smaller, the market will settle itself out. Right.
Yes.
But if you charge $150 an hour and you bring $150 an hour worth of value or more, then your client's going to feel like they win.
Yes.
The service you're providing is well worth the money.
Totally.
And then it's not an issue. Right. I have a certain amount that I charge for what I do.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the value I bring. And I would think my clients agree.
You probably bring more than that. That's the point, right? It's like they have to feel that you are bringing more than that because they feel like it's a bargain.
But I also don't take advantage of that relationship either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I feel comfortable in what I make and what I do. So I don't take advantage of that.
It's hard. It's weird. It's really hard to charge for something that.
Here's what's really weird.
Oh man.
Hey, shout out to my guy Tom. Tom is
Tom.
He was first my client, and then he became my friend, and then he became my mentor, and he became my best friend. That's
awesome. What a nice progression.
Yeah, and fuck, what were we just saying? Oh, it totally blanked.
We were talking about how it's weird to charge
for
relationships, essentially. We're charging for intimacy.
Yes. Anyways, and so I still charge Tom. We work out. Whenever we're together, we work out all the time. What he pays me to work out, it comes out to be like $10 a day because we're just together so much and everything we do. But there's a business part of our relationship we have to keep. Like,
yes, otherwise Tom wouldn't freaking put in the effort, and neither would you.
Hey, and God bless Tom. I try to give you a sweetheart of a deal.
Sounds like a good deal.
But he understands that too, and we have that. We settled that part of our relationship, and it's done, and now we can move on to the other stuff. But that's very rare. Tom's the only person that I've ever done that with in my whole career.
Yeah, you know I mean, it's weird. Like I feel like, to give a gym analogy, because I also love working out, but it's like you charge or you pay a lot for a fancy gym membership, and some might say like, oh, it's the amenities and the stuff, and it's like I really do think so much of paying a lot of money is about holding yourself accountable. Like it's knowing that you have put in this symbol of your commitment, and so then the follow through then becomes more second nature.
I would piggyback onto that and go, because when you were talking, I was thinking you're also paying for the environment.
Oh,
and like
totally.
And the energy, right?
Yes.
So like if you go
that's a good point.
to like garage, like Musclehead Gym, and they charge like $35 a month, and like, you know, there's no air conditioner, like, you know what you're getting there.
Yes.
Like that, you're the value.
And that could be the vibe.
Yeah. And that could be the vibe. Right. And if they charge like, $200 a month, you'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Right. Or maybe you would, maybe some people would pay that.
Like, yes.
Right. But like, it's that value.
Yes.
Again. Anyways, well, that's great. This transitions perfectly into. So how I usually like to try to wrap this thing up is like just asking everybody like, how do you balance your life? How do you take care of yourself? I mean, more than enough. We've talked about like things about that. So,
Yes.
but like, how do you make yourself the best version of you so that you can be better for everybody else? I would assume you work out, right? Because you mentioned
Yes.
that, right? So anyways, what's your, just you go through your stuff and I'll have questions.
Yes. And I mean, I'll just preface this by saying one of the main draws of me becoming a therapist, beyond just feeling like it's the best job ever, is feeling that the most valuable thing I have to offer as a therapist is my presence, like how I show up and my energy, which means that it is necessary to my profession that I take really immaculate care of myself. And maybe you could say that about any job, but I truly feel like taking care of myself is super essential.
Well, and I would say more specifically, like your brain, like your mind and how you think and what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Hence needing the therapist, right? Like that is you getting treatment to play your sport or do your thing because that's what makes you good for your people, right?
Totally. My wellness is like what people are paying for, weirdly, in some way. Like me being a balanced person.
Well, can you imagine you're having a shitty day and you go into your therapist and they're like, "Oh, my fucking husband's cheating on me," and you're just like,
and they just bring their shit, and even if they don't talk about it, like I mean, I'm such a hippie. I believe deeply in like. People do pick up on energy. They can very much sense, even if they can't put words to it, if you're off. So it is essential, really, as a therapist, that you are, as much as you can control,
or
being
at
in
least be
shape.
able to, like, and you could say this in any job, put your personal shit aside for a moment.
Yes.
Be present. And then when you have the time now, you can kind of reprocess that shit.
Totally. It's just like that hat, like putting it on and off. But yeah, I mean, I've been like a lifelong, well, not lifelong, but since I had a mental health diagnosis, lifelong exerciser. I'm just a huge believer, not just believer. It's just that it's so essential to mental health for me.
What do you like to do? Like what's your...
Okay, so I've recently, this might be boring, but maybe not to you because you're into fitness. I've recently transitioned from doing like high intensity interval kind of weight training into a like MILFy style of working out.
What?
I do. It's just like I'm almost 30 and I feel like it's time to focus on longevity.
Wait, back up.
Okay, back up. Yes.
A MILFy style? MILFy style.
MILFy style.
Okay. So I'm in gyms all the time,
yes,
and I have no idea what MILFy style means. So you really need to explain.
Okay, you know what a MILF is?
Yes, I know what. Yes,
we'll just say it's a hot mother, hot mom.
Hot mom.
Okay, so I'm like hot mom energy. I'm graduating out of my 20s, and I'm really ready to embrace like healthy joints and like longevity and like power walks. So I'm starting to do a workout that I would never thought I would do. Tracy Anderson, have you heard of her?
No, who's Tracy Anderson?
If you were a woman, you would have heard of Tracy Anderson.
Maybe.
Okay. She's a celebrity trainer that she focuses on the small support muscle groups.
Sure.
So most training is focusing on the large muscle groups.
Sure.
I have gotten super injured because I've overtrained my quads and glutes. And I've just gotten like weird hip injuries, hamstring tears. And so I've decided to pivot. And it's just a lot of like Pilates-esque working out, which is very anti my personality, but I'm really trying to like chill myself out. So I'm doing Tracy Anderson. The women will know what this is because they're being targeted on Instagram for it. All of us are. And then I'm going on like walks, which is, I used to be super into HIIT, spin classes, super like high octane kind of workouts. And now I'm trying to chill.
I think in my experience, that is all pretty normal for like most people.
As in they're pivoting out of their 20s?
Well, most people that pay attention, like there are people that get into like their 30s, 40s, and possibly 50s that never transition out of that.
I don't know how.
Well, they're
good joints, joint genes.
Their bodies show it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I've been doing this for so long. Now, when I look at people, all I do is look at like it's so sad. I look at posture and feet, and like, I'm just like all the things. I'm like, oh my god, like that guy must have some back problems. You know what I mean? It's just like,
and I have them.
Yeah, and it just goes through my mind, right? And so when you don't make that pivot, so like, I wouldn't say I rode my non-pivot train too long. Mm-hmm. But I have recently really picked up a lot of like yoga, mobility, flow type stuff.
That's the other thing I do.
Right. doing like just more lighter workouts, like just a little bit more, I don't want to say targeted, but just like trying to just pay attention more to what I'm doing instead of lifting like really, really heavy weight. But then I have days where I lift like really heavy or whatever, and I just mix it all kind of together. But this is all kind of new.
Yeah.
But my body feels so much better.
Yes.
I feel so much better. And really quickly, what I realized was most of the people I train don't work out without me. Mm-hmm. Like they work out like Tuesday, Thursday, and that's it.
That's it?
I mean, I do have clients.
I'm honestly jealous of those people because I would lose my mind if I didn't work out.
I do have I'm not going to lump all my clients into one that my clients are going to get so mad. But there's just people that work out. They work out on the days that we train, and that's the only days they work out, right? And I realized that my job is really to try to make their bodies feel as good as I possibly can. So maybe they'll go be active on their own.
Ooh.
It's not my
fucking them up.
Yeah, it's not my responsibility to fix all those problems. They have to want more of that.
Yes.
But I can try to set them up for success to want to do those things.
Yes.
And I think that was also part of me losing my ego as a trainer and thinking I had more control over something that I didn't.
That's a great exercise in realizing like the lack of control that you have over other people.
That was me figuring out myself.
Yes.
That my clients benefited from me figuring out my shit.
Always.
But I mean, I think everyone benefits from you figuring out your own shit.
Oh my God, yes.
Anyway, sorry, I tangented on.
No, it's fine. So
you do exercise. What else? What else do you do?
And yeah. Oh, and I would like to add that I also do mobility work. So a lot of I call it the primordial squat. I'm sure you're doing a lot of this, like the deep squat where you're just like on your haunches, looking like a caveman.
Like for 30 seconds, you think you're like a gorilla.
Yeah, and you're just like getting down in there.
Like,
it's
weird. I could just take somebody out from this. I could just jump and just rip their face off. Yes. And you could barely stand. Like I could barely get up. Like I'm getting up like.
And it's like creak. It's like crazy. Oh my gosh. So I got this like mobility program, and the first day that I did it, I'm like, this is so easy. This is like me, me and my like only doing my HIIT workouts, and I'm like, this is so dumb that I'm doing a mobility workout. And the first day I did it, I like tweaked my back.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, guess I really needed this. So yes, humbling.
So let me just add, personal trainer drop in there.
Yes, please do.
It is very important as you age to do this mobility work.
Yes.
1,000%. But realize that like, if you haven't been doing it and you're probably over the age of 35, it's going to be rough. So
I'm 29 and it's real rough, so I can vouch.
So ease into it. Yes. Like ease into. Don't try to get all the poses.
Yep.
It's like some stupid comedy movie. It's like like you come up and you're in like a full body cast because you or whatever.
That was the vibe.
So just lightly get into it.
Yes, right? I definitely can vouch. Other than exercise, I do meditation.
Great.
Obviously, the one that I'm the most into right now is Tara Brach.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of her, but she is a meditation teacher and she's a psychologist. And
does she have a book?
She has many books. She has a podcast. Her books are Radical Compassion and Radical Acceptance.
Oh, you just said many books, and I totally went dude on you. It was like the Anchorman, where I was like many leather-bound books. Sorry,
Rich mahogany.
So what books? So like I have an unofficial book club. Just anytime somebody mentions a book, I make them tell me. So what is the book?
I would recommend Radical Compassion.
Okay.
She is really talking about not just, and this is an important graduation that I've made, because I think when you're in the world of coaching, you get really into shifting negative thinking into positive thinking, and that's great. But for me, what I had to realize, because I was on that track for a while, but not maybe making the progress that I really wanted to, when I was constantly just like, no, you're thinking negatively. No. And basically rejecting my negative emotions. Instead of accepting it. And that was maybe a rookie mistake on my part, but going to Tara Brach really helped me.
I think it's very normal.
It is, right? And I think in extremes, as do a lot of humans, but, and just thinking like, oh, positive thinking means I only think positive. Negativity has no space here, which is just a different kind of rejecting of yourself. So she is really about like radically accepting the full range of human emotions and kind of like nurturing the parts of you that are aching. And that for me has been super transformational.
Just recognizing and acknowledging what you're really feeling in a moment
Yes.
is like 75% of the battle. I mean, like,
yes,
it's so hard to go like, why am I mad? Well,
Yes.
am I really mad, or am I just sad, or am I just offended, or am I just like mad? Almost feels like such a general term, and you like, what am I really feeling? And when you can get to, if you could just do that, for me, it kind of started to slow things down a little bit. Where I go, oh, okay, well, I'm just butthurt. Like nothing was really done to me. This is just me. Maybe I should. Like, you know, that I shouldn't have been. Maybe I lashed out against this person. Maybe I did something. I shouldn't have done that. And be able to then go, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm not mad. I just was really hurt that you said blank to me or whatever. And I know that, you know, or whatever.
Right. And what I love about that is even that moment of you stopping and considering what it is you're actually feeling.
Just trying.
That is, and like what's helpful for me to feel that is an act of love towards yourself. That really is. It's an act of compassion. And what I was doing prior to this was thinking I was doing myself a service by immediately saying, I'm feeling something bad. No, I'm going to feel something good without taking the time. So what was happening is there's this whole part of me that's just being rejected and being neglected. And it really felt like I was rejecting myself. I know that sounds like hippy dippy, but in taking that time to recognize what's happening, what you're really doing or demonstrating to yourself is like, hey, I care. I care about what's going on. And that, you know, it's like that famous quote. It's like, only when I totally accept myself as I am can I begin to change. Right. I was trying to change without accepting myself, and it was not working.
All I could think of was your drug of choice was to numb.
Yeah.
The way you approach that was to numb, not to open up and fix.
100.
Right?
Totally.
And so, you know, like it just kind of comes back to, like, you know, what we're talking about way before with like bringing the drug thing in, like your mind, like you're in charge of your mind.
Yes.
And either you're numbing in a way of like rejecting, like just personal thoughts,
no.
just saying, you know, or are you open to like, does a homeless guy have any, like, does he know anything that I don't know? Maybe he could say before, like when I said, like, you know, someone you don't know could say something, and maybe you kind of, do you take that in and go, is that a possibility?
Yeah, it's like the curiosity and the openness, which to me, curiosity, openness, being like intrigued by something, like to me, that all is in the language of love, as opposed to this rejecting or this numbing, if there's a dichotomy here. So yeah, Tara Brach meditations. We're talking about my self-care regimen. And yeah, that's a big one. And that's something, this is where I do feel, and I have so much love and respect for like the coaching community as opposed to the like therapy community. They're on the same side, and I fall into both camps. Sometimes I do feel like the error of a lot of like life coaches or people more in the coaching sphere is that they do tend a little bit more towards that realm of like toxic positivity or of just like kind of cutting out the negative parts of our experience and as a way of forcing yourself towards something else. And I think there is some error there.
And to that point.
Yes.
And to what we said before, people can read that. And so when you view someone that is rejecting negativity and only saying positive, you're like, that doesn't feel authentic.
No.
Like they don't have to say anything, you just feel it.
Yes.
But there's this weird, and it can go the extreme opposite way. It's like, you know, accepting so much toxic stuff. It's like, woe is me.
Yes.
I'm overcoming. And then there's the middle of that.
Right.
And that's what you're shooting for. Yes. You're shooting for the middle.
Yes.
Right.
And it was my complaint while I was in grad school, actually, because weirdly, when I was in grad school and social work school specifically, which is very focused on, you know, the problems of the world, that I found myself leaning more towards like the coaching model and being like, we need to focus on solutions and stop muddling around in the problems and stop obsessing about the problems. And I do think that is a possibility. I think it definitely is in the realm of possibility that a therapist or therapy would focus way too much on just kind of soaking in the difficult experiences and maybe kind of, I hate to use the word like coddling, but kind of that vibe of just kind of soothing and comforting you in your distress rather than at the exclusion of moving towards something better. So like you said, I mean, both extremes exist.
Basically what you're trying to tell me is that, like, you know, I mean, you're a pretty darn good, like, you're really balanced because you understand the coaching part and you understand the therapist part. So you sit somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, how serendipitous is that?
How moderate.
How moderate.
So moderate. But yeah, meditation, exercise. I'm in therapy. I'm in couples therapy, which I'm a huge fan of.
Hey, and kudos to your boyfriend for going to couples therapy as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, he's in my camp, so that works out well.
But you know, like, look, again, y'all, I mean, y'all are actively taking part in your relationship and trying to make it better.
It's wild.
Right. But I mean, like, you know, there also could be the relationship without a therapist.
Yes.
And that might be okay. But in my experience, it's always better with one. It's always, or at least some, you know.
The intention, right? It's kind of like how you were talking earlier about your daughter. It's like, I'm not just going to have a kid. I'm going to freaking have a kid. And I'm going to really make this my mission and my focus and my thing. I'm going to do this with as much intention as I can muster. And I feel like so often the most important things in our lives, weirdly, often get the least of our attention. Like our relationship with our partners or our relationship with our family.
Because we assume we got that under control.
Because that's just supposed to be easy.
That's just done.
And love is just serendipitous. And these things should be just like simple and easy. And we take them for granted when in reality, or in my kind of viewpoint, I think those things deserve the most work. You know, and the other stuff should be simple. Making money should be simple. Like relationships deserve our attention.
Why wouldn't you invest in the thing that has the most value?
Yeah.
Most value to you. Why wouldn't you invest in that? So you're going to invest in other bullshit that doesn't have value?
Right. I mean, there's obviously the idea that so many people can't afford and are completely tied to their jobs in a way that they really like don't have the time and the resources. But for those of us that do have the money or the time to invest as we choose, I think, and this is where, I mean, this is really just about our priorities. I think no matter how much money you have, it is still a matter of what are you prioritizing. And I think this is where it's been my experience going through the world that people with less money oftentimes do prioritize relationships or like, and still continue to prioritize those things that are intangible.
They put value into that.
Yeah.
They didn't put it into their job. They didn't put it into people that don't matter.
Right.
They put it into these relationships, these people, their squad, whatever, you know. Shout out to my girlfriend. She's very much like that. And I'm so appreciative of it. And it's such a great example for my daughter to show value in people. You know what I mean? So.
I only just met them, but they sparkle. They're really amazing. I mean, and you can just tell like that is just like being in your household and being among your family. You can tell that is like the central focus, which is so cool. That's rare.
Nice. Well, I always ask everybody if they have a good time, but no one's ever said, no, I've had a horrible time. Did you have a good time?
I had a great time. This is amazing. I can't believe, I don't know how many hours it's been.
Well, I mean, you know, give or take whenever I edit this all up and we put it all together, but we've been recording for a couple hours. So
wow, that's wild.
Yeah. So it's been a minute. So
it's been a blink.
I make everybody give me a hug. You can push that mic out. I mean, you don't have to give me a hug.
I'll give you a hug.
You know, I mean, like, you know, the vibes. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
It was lovely.
Yes, thank you.